Hi, this is Andrew Aversa with Impact Soundworks, and in this video I'm going to give a quick walkthrough of how I used FREDONIA Grand Organ and no other instruments in my New World Symphony Largo mockup. As you can see, I've got just a single instance of the instrument loaded, but I'm using 4 different MIDI tracks. Even though I'm not a professional organ player, it's very convenient to be able to control each division of the organ, so that's swell, positive, pedal, and grate individually. So if I play the swell division here, that sounds very different from the positive division. Which in turn sounds different from the very bassy pedal setup that I have. And then finally the grate, which is sort of in between the swell and the positive in terms of the sound that I'm actually using. Now I'm going to play the demo back and show the MIDI data per channel, and you'll see how I'm using each one as a sort of a different part of the instrument ensemble. So the positive is going to be playing the chords in the harmony, the pedal is the bass, the swell is the melody, and then grate later on is sort of a counter melody. Switch to swell. The bass is quite simple, but I drop it out for this part. And bring it back here. Here's the grate being used for the first time. Now, I'll be the first to admit that technically some of the chords I used here might not be physically playable by a real musician, but of course that's the benefit of using a virtual instrument. You can write whatever you want. By selecting the right combination of stops, you can create your own custom tone for each division and get a vastly different sound. I'm going to play a little bit of the track again, except this time I'm going to manipulate the stops a bit more. So really, there's a huge combination of possible sounds you can get just by adjusting the stop combination per division. And it's like you're customizing each instrument in the ensemble. If we go to the Perform page, you can see exactly how I set that up. Swell is set to MIDI channel 1, positive channel 2, pedal 3, and grate 4. We could also adjust the relative volumes of these, which is what I did. I thought the pedal sounded a little overwhelming when it was turned all the way up. So I decided to turn that down and get a little bit of basic, almost like mixing happening. And the truth is, I'm not using any other effects in this project. There's no EQ, there's no compression. I'm not using any kind of soothe or mastering, nothing like that. This is really the raw sound of the organ, just using stops and a little bit of internal mixing. The only other thing to point out as far as effects go is that I am using the included Galois reverb in console. This is actually the default reverb that we have enabled in the wet patch. And the reason I'm using this instead of release noises is because it's a bit more CPU efficient and you get more control over the hall sound. Just for a moment, let's hear what it sounds like with the reverb and then without. So here's with. We'll disable it in console and you'll hear immediately it sounds very dry in comparison. But that's because we don't have release noises enabled. So if we turn these on, then we get the actual tail sound as recorded in the hall. But you'll notice in the voice count that by using release noises, we get a voice spike at the end because for every single note and every stop, we have to play the release sample of that note in that stop. By using an external reverb or a reverb internal to console, you can save on CPU. Now, something else I want to note is that I changed the tone of the positive division in the middle of the track. And this was done not by using MIDI CC automation, but by using key switches to enable and disable the principal stop. If I do this in real time, it sounds something like this. And now if we take a look at the MIDI data, F#8 is the one assigned to that particular stop. If I highlight those notes, when you play at high velocity, it turns on the stop. And when you play at low velocity, it turns it off. So if we go back here, and then go back to this part, we're able to get these very interesting and rich changes in tone just by using simple key switches. There's no need to load separate patches or separate banks or anything like that. And that basically sums it up. That's how I created this demo and this mock-up of a beautiful piece by Dvorak. The key is just selecting the stops that you want for the tones that you want in each division separately, using different MIDI channels to control and write for them differently, just like you would write for an instrumental ensemble. And then, if needed, using a little bit of key switching to enable or disable stops. It's also worth noting if you want to use CC automation for the stops, you can. Each one can be learned here via MIDI CC. And then you can also use the crescendo system feature to turn them on and off in groups, but we talk about that more in the main walkthrough video. Fredonia Grand Organ is available now for the free Kontakt 6 player. I hope you'll check it out, and I hope you find it as inspiring and as useful as we do.